Hi there, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangus, and I'm making this video really quickly to explain to you guys the basic premises of Civilization 5. The reason why I'm making this video is because my recent Civ/Fire Emblem LP has kind of blown up, and I get a lot of comments from people saying, Mangus, I just don't understand Civilization. I really want to watch your Let's Play, but this game looks confusing as hell, and I don't really understand how it works. So there are many tutorials online, but I think a lot of you guys would prefer if I made one myself. So in this video, I'm just going to be playing a very short game of Civ. I might not even complete it, and I'm just going to explain the very basic functions of the game so that it's easier for you guys to jump into my Let's Play and actually understand what's going on. I'm just going to be winging it. It's not going to be scripted or anything. I'm just going to be explaining the basic principles of Civ 5 as best as I can. So this game isn't really all that complicated at all. It is actually really simple, unlike a lot of other strategy games like Europe, Universalis and shit like that. Like a lot of people look at Civ and they think that it looks so incredibly complicated and weird, but it's actually one of the simpler strategy games out there. It just looks very complicated at first glance. So basically the premise of Civilization is to build a civilization, and you do this generally by building very large cities or by conquering the cities of others. There are multiple ways you can win this game, but we're not going to go too much into that right now. You always start out with a settler and a warrior. A settler you use to settle your first city, and generally you want to select the location where you can get the most resources in range. Generally a city can work tiles within 3 tiles of itself, so you always want to make sure that you have as many resources within 3 tiles as humanly possible. If you hold over a resource, you will see how many yields it gives. I will go a little bit more into that, but first let's explain how cities themselves work, because that's the most basic premise of this game. Now, you can generally go ahead and found your city in your starting location. Usually you'll start out surrounded by decent resources, but some players might opt to move elsewhere if they see a more favorable location. But in most cases, you can always just found your city right now. So, your city always starts out at level 1. I prefer to say level, but the proper term is actually the amount of citizens in a city. But suffice to say, you start out with a level 1 city. Now, this little number on the side here indicates how many turns you need for your city to grow, and this is based on the city's food output. So, I think we're gonna start by taking a look at the resources that you have before we start getting into food. So, up here in the top left corner, there are a number of numbers, and I'll go over each and every one of them. At least those that are relevant to the early game. So, the first resource in Civ is science. Science is one of the most important things in Civ because you need science to advance through the tech tree. Without the tech tree, you can't build buildings. Each of these techs, let's just call them fucking techs. Each of these techs unlock different units and buildings that we need for our civilization to prosper, and each of them cost a different amount of science. Cities generally generate science when they grow larger, but you can also build buildings on them to increase this amount, such as libraries and universities. When you get more cities, it takes more science to advance techs. So generally, the more cities you have, the more expensive technologies gets, but usually it is smart to have multiple cities. Then you have gold. Gold is one of the few resources which you actually accumulate. Meaning that you don't just spend them automatically when they reach a certain milestone. You get gold from mining valuable resources or building buildings in your cities that generate gold. Gold is very unique because you can use gold to like instantly buy things instead of waiting for your city to build them. Such as, for example, we can either spend 10 turns to build a worker, or we can just purchase it for 220 gold. So gold just allows you to instantly get things that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. This right here is your trade routes. I'm not going to go into that right now because they're not really relevant, but what is very relevant is your happiness. Happiness is basically how happy your empire is, and generally you want this to be as high as possible. If your happiness goes to 0 or below, your empire will become unhappy, and you'll start to get a number of penalties that will drastically fuck things up for you. Generally, happiness goes down the more cities you have and the bigger cities you have. As you can see right here, it shows you exactly what makes you happy and what makes you unhappy. Right now, I'm actually playing on the easiest difficulty level just for the purposes of this tutorial, so I start out with an absurd amount of happiness. But the higher the difficulty you play on, the lower your starting happiness will be. You can build buildings that improve your happiness, such as circuses and coliseums, and you can also get luxury resources like copper, which will increase your happiness. It says over the resource when you hover over it. So generally, You just want your happiness to be as high as possible. And basically, happiness is what will prevent you from settling new cities, because you'll reach a point where it's pretty much impossible for you to become happy if you settle more cities. So, on average, if you play a pretty high-level game, the amount of cities that you can reasonably sustain is 4, but you can build more on lower difficulties. Now, this is a little counter here, is the Golden Age counter. For each amount of surplus happiness you get, is added to this Golden Age counter. So, for example, now we have 14 happiness, we get 14 Golden Age points per turn. Once this Golden Age point reaches 335, or, whatever is the requirement, it goes up as the game progresses, we'll enter a Golden Age, which will give us some very nice bonuses. So, the happier you are, the faster you'll enter a Golden Age. This right here is your culture. Culture is important because when you acquire culture, you will start to unlock something called policies. These policies will give you various bonuses. You can't unlock all of them right away. Some of them require you to advance into the later eras. But for example, tradition is a very solid opener. It costs culture to unlock. Each time you get enough culture, and this increases for each policy you gain, you get to unlock one of these policies right here. And as you can see, they go down in a tree, so you need this one to unlock this one. You need this one to unlock this one. Generally, if you complete all policies in a single tree, you get basically a bonus for unlocking all of them. In this case, your cities will grow 15% faster, and you'll get an aqueduct in your first 4 cities, which is a very good building that increases growth rates. So basically, you want to aim to at least fill out 1 or 2 of these trees early. You can also spread them out, but you won't get many good bonuses that way. You'll also get an opener bonus right here. For example, just by selecting tradition, you get 3 culture per turn in the capital, which is kind of cool. And it also unlocks certain buildings. So each of these policies right here focuses on different things. Like tradition basically focuses on small empires that want big cities. Liberty gives you bonuses to having a lot of cities, but smaller cities. Honor is basically good if you plan on doing a lot of early game warmongering, or if you have a lot of barbarians to fight. We'll talk more about those when they show up. Piety is for religious empires, gives you a lot of faith and stuff like that. Patronage is basically how you relate to city-states. We'll talk more about those when they show up. Rationalism is for empires focusing on science, gives you a lot of different science bonuses. Exploration is, well, it's for exploration, but it also gives you a lot of naval bonuses. So if your city settle next to the coastline, you'll get a lot of bonuses for that. Commerce is, of course, for gold. You get a lot of extra gold from these policies. And finally, aesthetics gives you a lot of culture. In the late game, you'll also be adopting something called ideologies, but we won't really get into that now. So, we've talked about the resources up here. I will also explain the rest of the interface. So right here, up in the top right corner, you basically just have some information. All this information is basically not very relevant, but the turn count is kind of important because sometimes you want to keep track of that. You can also press this one to get additional information. This is more advanced stuff, but there's a lot of good information you can get here as well. The first thing we do is basically to select a tech. So I like to open up the tech tree to see where I'm going. And basically you want all of these techs eventually. It's not like you can ignore many aspects of this tech tree. But basically what you want to focus on is to unlock the techs needed for your resources. So for example, if we take a look at the resources lying around our city, we have silk and copper and stone. We also eventually will get cattle and deer. And if you hold over a resource, it actually tells you which tech you need to take advantage of it. So in order to get the silk, we need the calendar tech. The calendar tech is located right here. And that will allow us to build plantations, which is a building we need to build on top of this resource to harvest it. We hold over copper, it says we need mining. Mining is a tier 1 tech right here that you need to build mines. So you want to basically pick your starting techs based on what kind of resources you have around your city. But of course, in order to do that, we'll need to build workers, which we'll get into soon. But the next point I want to touch upon is how cities grow. If you press on your city right here, we'll get a basic information window detailing how the city works. So right now we only have a palace. Your capital always starts out with a palace, but as you build buildings, they'll show up on the screen right here. But what's important right now is to focus on these little resources right here. So this is everything your city generates. So I'll go over each of these resources. So food is basically what a city needs to grow. As you can see right here, these different tiles have different values added to them. You can see this tile right here generates 2 food. This tile right here generates 1 food. The tile that our city is founded on generates 2 food and 2 hammers. The more food you have, the faster your city grows. It's pretty much that simple. You need food for a city to grow larger. The larger a city grows, the more food it consumes, and you basically need surplus food to grow. So the larger a city gets, the more difficult it is to grow it larger. And you'll need to continuously add more and more food to make it grow. So yeah, that's pretty simple. There's also things that can make a city grow faster, like the aqueduct building, which will make it grow 40% faster. You can influence growth rates that way. Then we come to production. Production is basically how quickly a city can build things. As you can see, these values have hammers attached to them. So for example, this mine right here is very good. It provides 2 hammers. So if we decide to work that one, our city will produce more, but as you can see, the food just went down. We can decide to lock this tile, maybe. That will give us 2 food, but less hammers. So you have to make the choice between, do you want your cities to produce buildings quickly, or do you want it to grow? Now, this city is level 1, so we can only work 1 tile. When the city grows to level 2, we can work 2 tiles. So larger cities can work more tiles. So generally early on, you want to go for food because you want your city to level up so that it can work more tiles. But some people who like to go really special openers, for example, if you want to rush a wonder, might actually opt to lock a production tile to get the wonder really quickly. We'll talk more about wonders later. So that's just basically the basic premise. Gold, of course, is how much gold your city generates. As you can see, some of these tiles generate gold, such as the plantation and the copper mine. Basically, any tile with luxury resources tend to generate gold. And yeah, your city will add its total gold to your gold coffers. All your cities will do this, and you'll accumulate gold, which you can spend. Science, we've talked about, basically how much science your city generates. On average, the more citizens you have, or the higher level a city is, the more science it generates, but you can also build science buildings, such as libraries and universities, to increase this. Science is one of the most important resources in Civ. If you don't produce enough science, the other civilizations will basically just eclipse you in tech, and you'll be attacked by machine guns when you still have knights on horses, and that will just generally make you die really fast. Faith is a resource tied to a religion. You don't generate any faith right away, but as soon as you start building faith buildings, such as shrines and temples, you'll accumulate faith, which you'll need to found a religion. If you manage to find a religion of your own, that's a big boost for you, since religions give you big bonuses depending on what you select within the religion. But generally, if you don't found a religion, someone else will, and there's only a limited amount of religions that can be founded in each game, and it's not as many as the total civilizations in a game. So some people will snag the religions and the rest of the civilizations will not, and then they will just proceed to spread the religions to those who don't. Tourism is a more advanced resource, usually doesn't come into the late game. Tourism is basically something that you generate when you start building hotels and stuff like that, when you get into the modern eras. Tourism gives you a bunch of benefits over other civilizations. If you have a lot of tourism when they don't, you'll start to pressure them, and they'll get less happiness, because your empire is just cooler than theirs. So you can also win a tourism victory by just generating a lot of tourism. You can eventually just win by everyone traveling to your city. And of course, lastly, we have culture. Now, culture, as I said, gives you policies, but it also does something that's also very important, and that is that it grows the borders of your cities. The more culture a city generates, the faster its borders will expand. As you can see right here, it says 10 turns until border growth. This little area right here indicates what kind of tile the city will grow next time. Usually it's select the tile of a resource. You can also buy tiles with gold to quickly expand your city. As you can see here, it costs money depending on the tile. You generally want to do this if you want to snag a tile really quickly, or if someone settles next to you and tries to take it away from you. But generally, you can let your city grow as you please. So, that is basically how a city works. Now, if you don't want to manage your own tiles, you can basically just select one of these tiles. You can, for example, say, okay, focus on gold, or you can say focus on production, or you can say focus on food, focus on science, focus on culture, focus on great person focus. We haven't talked about great people yet. But generally, you always want to put your city on food focus initially. That will make Washington grow in 5 turns. Meanwhile, we can do some exploration. Now, a city needs to produce something. if it doesn't produce something, it will tell you to produce something, and a little hammer icon will come up right here. So generally, in the early game, you have the choice between wanting to build some culture buildings to get policies faster, or get a scout. I prefer getting a scout because a scout allows you to explore. You also need to research something, and in this case, I usually go for pottery. The reason why I like going for pottery first is because it unlocks the granary, which is a really good building. It gives extra food, which you need for a city to grow, and as I said, growing a city early on is generally considered a good idea. Also, it unlocks the shrine, which is one of the first buildings that give you a religion, and getting a shrine up early is considered pretty good, because getting a religion is very useful. But of course, in some cases, for example, if you have a mine next to you that you would like to improve right away, going for mining is generally considered good as well. Or if you have a lot of barbarians, you might want to opt for archers to get some archers out. So, but in this case, we will go for pottery and then select next turn. So once you select next turn, all the other AIs in the game, in this case we only have one, will take their turn, and it's your turn again. So basically the early game of Civ is just, you want to explore as much as possible and see basically what lies around you. And sometimes you'll encounter things like a natural wonder. In this case, we found Mount Sinai. Now, Mount Sinai, or natural wonders, are special tiles that generate unique resources if you work them. So if we settle a city next to Mount Sinai, we will actually can work that for 8 faith per turn, which will give us a religion. So that's a really good thing. But generally, you can't really expand yet. You need a settler to do that, which you can build right here. But in order to get a settler, you need to have at least a level 2 city. Once you have a level 2 city, you can build a settler, send that settler off to a location, and found a new city. And that's generally how you expand. But for now, we're going to be focusing on building a scout. Now, terrain in Civilization can affect your movements. Jungle, hills, everything that's called rough terrain pretty much only allows you to move a single tile, except for the scouts. They can move freely through terrain. If you move up to a mountain, you'll actually get extra vision rate, as you can see right here. So moving on top of mountains is a very good idea, because it allows you to get a good look around, at your surroundings. Now, what we just encountered right here is a barbarian encampment. These barbarians are basically neutral units that do not belong to any particular civilization. They're only interested in pillaging, plundering, and raping your citizens. If you encounter an encampment, that encampment will keep spawning barbarians until you clear it out. Usually it's really hard to clear out an encampment, because if we go over and look at the combat window down in the bottom left corner, you can see that they have something called a fortification bonus. That's because they've been there for a long time, so they are really hard to take down. It's going to be really tough for us to take them down. Now, you may notice also that I have a 70% bonus versus barbarians. This is because I'm playing on a very easy difficulty. I'm playing on settler difficulty for the purpose of this tutorial. On higher difficulties, you will not get this bonus towards barbarians. That's the only reason why we're having a minor victory right here. Now, we can of course attack them, and I think I have animations on, but right now we used up all our movement, so we can't. But generally, you want to take care of barbarian encampments as quickly as you can see them, because they'll start spawning barbarians, they'll move towards your cities, and if they come towards your cities, they can either attack it, and if they manage to get it down to 0 hit points, they'll sack it, taking away all your gold, or they can kidnap your villagers, or pillage your improvements, and it's just generally really, really bad. You can opt to play without barbarians if you think they're annoying, but I think they're an integral part of the game, and I like having them on. So, we just got a scout. Scouts are good because they can move through terrain at any costs. They can also get experience and gain promotions that increases their sight range. They also spawn with sentry, which is a promotion that gives them 1 sight range, which is pretty good. Now, for our next unit, we're going to build a worker. Now, workers are very important units because they can do something called improving tiles. This is something that I'll get into once the worker spawns. So, we can attack the barbarians. Now, if you play with animations, you get a fun little animation, and you can basically see them losing hit points. Each unit in Civilization has 100 hit points, but they have something called combat strength, which pretty much indicates how good they are. So once a unit is reduced to 0 hit points, they die. And if you hover over, you can see how much damage you're going to do, and you can see how much damage they're going to do to you back. And you can see all the modifications and modifiers that influence the combat itself. Now, we have something here that I haven't touched upon. We have some ancient ruins right here. These are spread all across the map. If a unit moves over them, they'll get some bonuses, random bonuses. And that is usually very good. That's why you want to explore the map early on, because you want to grab those ancient ruins. Now, we just got a tech right here. That's good. That means that we can now build a granary and the shrine in all of our cities, and thus the game tells us to select another tech. Now, I am actually going to go for mining because I have 2 copper mines that I'll need to get, so that will take me 5 turns. The more science you have, the quicker you will research technologies. If you hold over the mining, you can actually see it costs 21 science, and we get 5 science per turn. So if we got like 10 science per turn, we would actually get this in half the time. So the more science you have, the faster you unlock your tanks. Now, as you can see right here, we actually have a really good expansion location right here because we have a lot of fish. Fish, basically, all. I should probably touch upon the differences between luxury and strategic resources. So basically, if you hover over these resources, you can see what they do. Each of these resources allows you to construct a special tile improvement on them, depending on their research. For example, these fishing boats allows you to send fishing boats out to construct fishing boats, which will give you food. So these tiles basically are enriched. Fish just grants +1 food to a tile, adding it up to a total of 2 food per turn if you work it. There are technologies you can research that improves the food yield of these resources. So for example, once we research optics, we can build a lighthouse. It gives +1 food to coast and ocean tiles, which will basically improve the yields of coastal cities. So settling a city next to the coast allows you to build ships. Coastal cities generally have more food because of fish, but they have less production because the sea tiles don't have any hammers on them. Whereas, for example, Washington has a lot of hammer tiles right here, as you can see. Washington also grew to level 2 right now, so now we can actually work 2 tiles. So we're working these 2 tiles right here because the city is in food focus. If we wanted to, we can play around with this and we can say, okay, work these tiles. And now suddenly you can see that Washington actually has a food minus, which means that in a couple of turns it will actually starve if we're not careful. So if you let your city starve, it will actually de-level down to 1. So you don't want to be doing this. This is generally considered really, really bad. There we go. So, we have our first policy. So we can select any of these 4 openers right here. As I said, tradition is good for small empires. Liberty is good for big empires with lots of cities. Honor is good for fighting barbarians. So you can see we get a bonus against barbarians, as well as, giving us various bonuses related to early game wars. And piety is good for religion. Tradition is generally considered the best opener in Civ because it gives you culture, which is really good, because the 3 culture you get from the tradition opener helps you get more policies quicker. There was a time when I thought liberty was good, because it grants you 1 culture in every city that you get, but in order to get the same bonus from liberty, you need to have 3 cities, whereas the bonus from tradition grants you 3 culture right away. So, liberty also increases things like worker speed. You can build workers faster, for example, and you get extra productions in cities. Now, arguably one of the best traits of liberty is this one, collective rules, which improves the build speed of your settlers by 50%. This is great for expansion. Now, liberty is kind of cool if you have a lot of cities that you want to snag really quickly. The problem with liberty, I find, is that you can't really have more than 4 to 5 cities because of your happiness, so it doesn't really become viable. But if you want to get a lot of cities, then I guess liberty could work. But for now, we will select tradition, and that will grant us 3 extra culture. And you can see right here that we're generating a lot of culture per turn right now, and we'll get our next policy in 3 turns. So that's all good. Now, we're not really going to be testing our luck against these barbarians, so I think we're actually going to be retreating and getting these ancient ruins right here to see what we get from them. Meanwhile, let's explore more with our scouts. And we just found another set of ancient ruins. This is generally why you want to build scouts early on, because you want to grab these ancient ruins before all the other civilizations do. So let's grab this one. And we got the advanced weapon. So there's a number of different bonuses that you get randomly. You can get attack, you can get extra population in your cities, you can get faith, you can get culture, you can get gold. In this case, we got an upgrade, which means that our warrior upgraded to a spearman. Usually you actually need a tech to get this, so this is really good. You need bronze working in order to unlock the spearman, which is a more advanced unit with more strength that has a bonus versus mounted units. In this case, we got it for free, so this actually helps our early game out considerably. Now that we have the spearman, we can actually go back and challenge the barbarian encampment, because the spearman has 11 strength compared to the warrior's 8, which is a lot better. So let's get this ruin and see what we get. That gives us a map, which allows us to explore the area around it. Map is actually my least favorite bonus from the ruins, because usually I can explore fine on my own anyway, whereas the bonuses from, like, extra culture and stuff I can't get on my own. But, you know, you'll take what you can get. I mean, it's a nice little bonus, I suppose. So, there's not really much to see here. Our scouts can't really deal with the barbarians, so we're gonna move them away. Now, we have another policy, thanks to tradition. Now, we can, of course, decide to go another tree, but we'll be spreading ourselves really thinly. Now, tradition has really bad starting policies, but if you, for example, want to go for wonders, which I'll talk more about later, tradition is an excellent opener. Usually, tradition is really good, though, because of these two lower policies right here, like landed elite, which really makes your capital grow fast, or monarchy, which gives you a lot of gold and reduces your unhappiness, which is really good as well. But for now, we're going to go with Oligarchy, which increases the city's range combat strength whenever you have a unit inside it. It's not really good, but you need it to get these later techs or later policies, so that's what we're going to go for. Now, we have just returned back to the Barbarians, and this time around you can see that our Spearmen are much better equipped to deal with them, and in fact, they'll probably win in a couple of turns. Now, meanwhile, our Scouts are going to go and explore more. Washington is going to grow to level 3 in 4 turns, which will grant us more tiles to work. And we have just completed the mining tech. So now what I'm going to go for is writing. Writing is a really important tech because it unlocks the library. The library gives you 1 science in every city, or in your city for every 2 citizens. This is great for your science gain. It also unlocks a wonder. Wonders are a very important aspect of civilization. They're basically unique buildings that only can exist one of in each game. So if you build a great library, nobody else can. Basically, this is called the Wonder Race, and all of the civilizations will aspire to get these wonders, and once one of them builds it, you'll get a notification saying that it has been built, and anyone who has tried to build it will not be able to build it anymore. So building a wonder is a bit of a gamble, because you can spend, say, 10 turns building it, and then suddenly someone else gets it before you, and then you can't build it anymore. You get some gold back, but it's generally considered a really bad thing. But the libraries gives insane bonuses. In this case, the Great Library gives you 1 free technology, which is absolutely massive in the early game. It also provides a free library in the city, which is built, which is really good. It means you don't have to build a library. So we're going to try to get the Great Library. On easier difficulties, you can pretty much always get it. Now, our Spearman has gotten enough experience to be promoted. Every time a unit fights, it gets experience. Once it reaches another level, you can select a promotion. At the start, you can only select 2 promotions. Actually, you can select 3. There's always an opportunity to heal up instantly, which will grant the unit 50 hit points if it's damaged, but it basically gives you no long-term bonuses. It's basically a short-time healing instead of a long-term bonus. You can always choose between Shock and Drill, which do the same thing, gives you 50% strength. Shock gives you strength in open terrain, Drill gives you strength in rough terrain. And based on these 2, you will unlock more promotions later. Now, we are mostly surrounded by heavy terrain here, forests, hills, jungles, so I'm going to be selecting Drill. This is going to give me another 15% bonus against the Barbarians. And as you can see, we're doing really well right here. We're almost clearing them out. There's only 1 little Barbarian left there, so he's going to have a really bad time. However, they just spawned some friends. This happens, so this kind of changes the game. If we try to take this camp right now, we are probably going to get killed by the brutes. So instead of attacking, I'm going to fortify. If you fortify until healed, your unit can't do anything, but it's going to regain 10 hit points every turn. 20 hit points if it's inside your friendly borders, and 25, I think, if it's within a city. So let's keep exploring. And in 1 turn, we are actually going to get our first worker. Now, these Barbarians decided to go head over to our city, which is what Barbarians do. Your cities can defend themselves. They can shoot up to 2 tiles away, and basically, the bigger a city is, the more damage it will do. Cities can always bombard, and this is basically your primary method of protecting yourself against Barbarians. Now, Barbarians can move 2 tiles or 1 tile, so I am generally safe with this worker as long as I keep it away from him. If this Barbarian takes the worker, he's gonna kidnap the worker, take it back to the camp, and I'm gonna have to go get it back. So this is a worker. Worker is one of the most important units in Civ because they can improve tiles, improving their yields. I'm gonna explain more about that in the next turn. Meanwhile, let's explore more. We can see the borders of a city-state. I'll explain more about those when we get into them. So now I'm actually going to be building a monument. A monument is a building that improves your culture gain. It's going to take 4 turns to build, and once it's built, it's going to pop up here, and it's going to improve the expansion rate of our borders, and also improve our culture gain, which will give us more policies. So culture is generally an important resource to gain early on. Now this brute decided that he didn't want anything to do with my city, but we're still going to keep bombarding him. There's no penalty to doing this. You should always fight barbarians whenever you can. Now, we have the worker over a copper mine. Now we have the opportunity to construct a mine. Depending on the tile you're on, you can construct different improvements, such as farms, trading posts, stuff like that. In this case, we can build a mine. Once we're done with the mine, we are going to get 1 extra production from this tile, and we are also going to connect copper to our network. That is going to give us 4 happiness, as we can see by holding over this icon right here. When improved, it grants 4 happiness. So having copper in the Empire makes our citizens happy, which will be good for us. That will give us more golden age points, and it will allow us to expand more. Now let's go and take a look at the city-state, shall we? The city of Antananarivo. So city-states are small, neutral cities spread all over the map, and they are basically, they won't really do much. They'll mostly mind their own business unless you choose to interact with them. So city-states comes in a many different forms. This one is a mercantile city-state. If you befriend a mercantile city-state, it will grant you happiness. You can also have other kinds of city-states, such as maritime city-states, which grants you food, cultured city-states, which grants you culture, religious city-states, which grants you faith, and militaristic city-states that grants you units. Basically, how to ally with these city-states is to do little quests. This city-state don't really have any quests for us yet, but soon they'll start asking us to do things. Usually in the early game, it's things like, hey, can you clear out this barbarian encampment or help us against barbarians? If you do that, you'll start getting influence with them. If you get enough, you'll become allies with them, and they'll grant you bonuses. You can see what kind of resources they have right here. If you become allies with them, they'll share these resources with you, granting you porcelain and cotton, which will give us a total of 8 happiness, which is nice. You can also select find on map, in case you want to know where it is. So right now, you can see our influence right here. Every city-state starts out with neutral. If you get 30 influence, you become friends, you get some small bonuses. If you get 60 influence, you become allies with them and get big bonuses. Other civilizations will compete for these influence points. If another civilization is allied with them, you can't be unless you get more influence than them. And if they have an ally, it will list right here. And if they have a quest, they will list it right here. If you're the first to meet a city-state, they will usually give you a small gift of gold, so another incentive to explore. I think we got like 15 or 20 gold from the city-state right here. So that's good. We got another policy. We're going to go into legalism. This is a policy that grants us a free culture building in our first 4 cities. This is usually a monument. So basically, when we settle a new city, we'll grant a free monument in it right away. This is going to help our early game border expansion, which is really good. Now, for the next building, we're going to go for a granary. So the granary grants us food, but it also does more than that. If we have any wheat, bananas, or deer worked within the city, such as this tile right here, and we build a granary, that is actually going to improve the food gains of this deer tile by 1. So based on the resources that you have around your city, you want to plan your buildings accordingly. So for example, if I had a lot of bananas around my cities, the granary would be even better. But still, it's a good building. It grants us 2 food, which we need for Washington to grow. Washington is now level 3, and it needs 6 more turns to grow to level 4. The more food we have, the faster it's going to grow. Now, we have rested up our pikemen, or our spearmen, and now it's time to take out this barbarian encampment. Clearing out barbarian encampments is good. It means we will have less barbarians to deal with. It also grants you a small sum of gold, and in some cases, if a city-state asks you to clear it out for you, or for them, you will get extra influence, which is really nice. There's another city-state here right away as well. It's kind of rare to see 2 city-states so close to each other, but that's nice. That means we have another potential ally. Now, it's worth noting that if you move inside a city-state's borders without being their allies, they're actually going to get a bit pissed with you. That's called trespassing. You're actually going to get minus influence points for as long as the scout remains within their territories. So be a little bit careful so you don't piss off the units too much. Now, the brutes seem to have left. They actually are right here now. Occasionally, you'll get messages like these, which will explain to you basically how you're doing. People who like shiny things the most is usually the gold output of each civ. So there's another civ in this game which we haven't met, and he is producing, or he has less gold than us, or she.
He who destroys a good book kills reason itself.
So we just finished writing, and sometimes you actually kind of want to change the production. If you change the production, you'll still retain all the production that's gone towards building the granary, so you can come and resume the building later. But for now, I am actually going to build the Great Library. Now, when I do this, I usually like to set the city on production focus. This way, we'll work this tile, which is worth more hammers, and we'll build the Great Library in 18 turns. Now, if someone gets this before us, we're not going to get it. But usually, it's considered a good idea to rush for wonders early, if that is what you want to get. We also uncovered another natural wonder. This, you know, I'm kind of sad that this isn't a regular Let's Play, because this is a really good start. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've gone over the basics of Civilization 5. There's a lot of other hidden modifiers as well. We haven't touched upon religion, we haven't touched much upon tourism or great people, and we haven't touched much upon war aside from clearing out a single barbarian encampment. But I feel like these are the basic premises of Civilization 5. It should allow you to get a decent understanding of how the game works. If you have any additional questions, or if you want me to make any other videos on any other more advanced topics, I'm happy to do so. If you have any questions, then ask in the comment section below. But I hope this video helped you out a little bit in understanding how Civilization works, and it should give you enough of an understanding to at least be able to keep up with a Let's Play. So with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this small little tutorial. I'm really happy that you guys are enjoying my Fire Emblem / Civ Let's Play so much. I never expected it to get like 13,000 views. That's absolutely fucking insane for a Civilization video. So yeah, give this video a like and a comment, I guess. And I shall see you guys next time. Goodbye.